is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
The University of Missouri officially signed defensive coordinator. We're here to talk about it and much more going on with Missouri Athletics. Hello and welcome into this week's edition of Mizzou That's Who here on KC Sports Network. I'm your host, Tucker Franklin, joined as always by Gabe DeArmond and Maggie Johnson. Gabe, how you been? A little bit later episode this week. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Just, watching not college football, and that's really about it. That's my life. Been traveling around a little bit and just reserving 3.5 hours every Sunday.
It's a great way to do it. The Chiefs keep winning into the Super Bowl now. If you would have told me that, Gabe, in October that they would be in the Super Bowl, I don't know if I would have believed you, but yeah.
It's been a good year for football in the state. So
it really has been. And just remember that Arrowhead is in the state of Missouri. Maggie, how are you doing this week?
I'm good. And can we talk about, if you're watching this on YouTube, how Gabe blends in? He's camouflaged with his backdrop today.
I like that.
He's very blended in.
I haven't really thought about that. If I just sit perfectly still.
Yeah. He's just like a bobbing head. Yeah, it's funny. Yes, Arrowhead is in the state of Missouri, which is very funny, kind of, that Kansas is playing. It's so weird that they're playing just those two random games at Sporting KC, and then they're playing the other 4 games at, an hour away from their stadium, which I get why they're playing it at Arrowhead, because where else are you going to play the games if you don't have a stadium? Because they're not making renovations to their stadium. They are tearing down, or their stadium is gone. It is a pancake from what I have seen. It is gone. But yeah, it is.
A couple of years ago, they could have played at Free State High School. Would have been plenty of room.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, they probably could still, with some of the games, play there. They still don't get that many people at their games, but yeah, I don't know. They will be playing some of their games at Arrowhead.
I know this isn't a Kansas podcast, but I did think the irony was lost on a lot of Kansas fans, I think, when that announcement was made that they're playing in Missouri for their home games.
And
cool.
They've played the Big 12 tournament in a state where there is no Big 12 team for a decade now, which is I don't really think it's necessarily this big flex for Missouri either. I don't really care either way. It's just kind of funny.
It is. You would think you'd want it in a state with your footprint, right? But again, Maggie, you make a good point. I don't know where else they really would have played besides if they would have played all of them at Sporting Park. Which is a possibility. But Arrowhead is obviously, I think a lot of people from the time that they have completely decimated their stadium, because I think they're building right on top of it. They're building it in the same location. They were like, oh yeah, we're going to play all of our games at Arrowhead. And look, I mean, it's not a super easy schedule that they have there, but
Dion will be there. Dion, they play Colorado at
There you
Arrowhead.
go.
That is true. Got to bring the big names in, as Missouri did bring in an defensive coordinator, I should say. Excuse me. Gabe, I just kind of want to start. They hired Corey Batoon, who has been a long-time assistant everywhere. I think where I first recognized him was at Ole Miss. He was at Ole Miss for a while. I believe here it says he's 32-year coaching veteran. That's older than I am, and he's been in this game for a long time. But I guess first I want to ask you just about the timeline, because I know that we talked about a couple podcasts ago how it maybe was taking a little bit longer than us fans had kind of anticipated it to be, and why they kind of went with an outside hire rather than the internal promotion.
Yeah, I mean, I started hearing pretty early on he's going to look outside, and once it took a week, you kind of knew, hey, this probably isn't an internal promotion, because if you're going to do that, you do it like Michigan did with Sharon Moore, and just, hey, yeah, we're not doing a search. This is our guy. So, look, I think that it is reasonable, based on what I know, that he talked to a lot of people, and some combination of didn't find the right fit, was told no, or just kind of couldn't come to terms with some people. And it's always weird to me with these coaching searches. The most important thing to these schools is that they get to stand up front at the press conference and say, this was our first choice. This is the only guy we talked to. It doesn't matter. I don't care if Corey Batoon is choice 1 or choice 7. I only care if he does a good job going forward. And I also, by the way, don't care how much money they pay him. It's not my money, so pay him whatever you want to pay him. But, I posted on our board the DJ Durkin talk. Like, that didn't come out of nowhere. DJ Durkin was in Columbia. I know that for a 100% fact. And generally, by the time a coach comes to town, that kind of means, hey, we're pretty close on this thing. It's not always. And what happened, I don't know. Whether Durkin said no, whether Missouri said no, or whether they just kind of couldn't come to terms and Jimmy Sexton said no. Any of these things could happen. Again, doesn't really matter. They've got their guy now. He's the guy going forward. And we'll see how he does.
And, I'm assuming with the amount of big names that he's coached under, I mean, obviously he's coached under Hugh Freeze. He's coached under Lane Kiffin. He's coached under our old buddy, Tom Herman. Not very long, but he's coached under Tom Herman. I mean, you would think that he's got some good references, right? And we know that Lane and Drink, they chat. So he's got some people that I would assume can vouch for him. So he can't be a guy that is that bad to have work for you. So
you don't coach for 30 years and not be good. I mean, all these guys know what they're doing. Even the guys who, like Steve Wilkes, isn't a crappy football coach. Didn't work here, but he's not bad at what he does.
Got a pretty good defense in San Francisco right now.
Yeah, he's got a pretty good defense. We'll see how good it is, against Patrick and Travis, and Taylor. We'll see. But I'm excited to see what he can do. His numbers are pretty good, and they only got better each year that he was at South Alabama. I'm excited to see what he can do with better talent because, the talent obviously wasn't great at Hawaii. The talent wasn't great at South Alabama. It wasn't bad, but, it's not great. I'm excited what he can do as Drink keeps getting better talent. He didn't even get the best talent at Ole Miss. He didn't get the best stuff. He didn't get the stuff that Lane's getting now. I'll tell you that. He didn't get that stuff.
No, I mean, looking at the numbers, he had a pretty solid defense last year for South Alabama. Mm-hmm. And the defense is pretty good. I believe it was top 25 now.
15th in the country.
15th. There you go. So I mean, he's been around. He's had a pretty good defense. Now you're going to give him more talented guys. We talk about a lot with coaches where you see them do more with less. Now they're going to situations where they have more. So specifically, Kalen DeBoer gets brought up in that conversation a lot. And you can almost scale it down a little bit to this, where he's going to have a little bit more than what he had at South Alabama. I don't think that's too big of a stretch to say that Missouri has more resources than South Alabama and Mobile. I do think that it's one of those things where I trust Drinkwood's hiring process because he hit on an offensive line coach. He hit on promoting Blake Baker. He hit on Kirby Moore. So he's hit on the last three. I don't think there's any reason to be skeptical about this hire. I can understand people's I don't know if frustration is the right word, but uneasy
change. Yeah. People don't want anything to change. They were 11-2 last year. Please don't change anything. I mean, look, I'm not. You're right. You're trying to be funny.
Yeah, no, you're right. And that's what's maybe frustrating. I laugh out of a sense of just that being so frustrating because, you have to change. People will graduate. They can't stay there for 15 years like a quarterback in the NFL. Well, maybe they can't.
You never know. It's coming.
They might be able to. But it's one of those things where I do think looking at his resume looks good. It speaks for itself. I don't think there's any reason to really be that upset about it. I saw some people upset because it wasn't a flashy name, but Blake Baker wasn't a flashy name. Kirby Moore wasn't a flashy name. I mean, let's give it some time here.
I think also, again, we need to be careful not to lend too much credence to the voice of a very few.
Yes.
Most people I've seen have said, we'll see. We got a defensive coordinator. Cool. I don't really know anything about him. We'll find out if he's good or not. That's the right approach. I mean, I said from day one, I will not pan this hire on day one because I don't know enough to do that. And here's the other thing. There's a lot of guys who can succeed as the defensive coordinator here. If you talk to any coach that has reached this level, and Eli has said this before too, he said, there's a lot of really good coaches out there that just never, they don't know the right guy or they don't get the right break and they never get the chance to be where I'm at. But there are a lot of people who could do what Eli Drinkwitz is doing, especially just when it comes to X's and O's in football. There's a lot of great coaches out there at different levels. It's just a matter of whether you get the right connections and get to the right place. I think the biggest question about Corey Batoon for me is this. His head coach last year was just hired as Alabama's defensive coordinator. So was this Corey Batoon's defense or was this Kane Womack's defense that Corey Batoon called during games? And that matters, right? We'll find out. But he was working for a head coach with a defensive background. So kind of like we had the questions with Kirby early last year, like, hey, Drink's still going to be involved here and all that. This is now his show. He's in charge. And I actually talked to a couple people during the process that said, one thing that I think people don't think about is if you're a defensive coach, if you're a DC and you go to work for an offensive coach, like you're kind of out there on your own. If this defense takes a step back, that all goes on Corey Batoon this year. Whereas last year, Kirby Moore came in and the offense was better, but not a lot better. A lot of people would have still said, well, yeah, but Drinkwitz is an offensive guy. Drinkwitz shares some blame for this. There's no sharing blame here. He's the offense. His background is offense. The defensive coordinator is essentially the head coach of half the team. And so, and again, I'm not saying that having worked for Kane Womack that he wasn't in charge of anything. Like, I have no idea. I don't know what the dynamics of the South Alabama defensive meeting rooms were. Probably never will. It's just something that I think is at least worth asking.
One of the things I really like about this hire is I know a lot of fans worry about like defensive schemes and whether the players are going to have to learn a lot of things with, all of that. And I know we've talked about the personnel and like the turnover, and we have a lot of turnover, so that's kind of good. But I know he runs a lot of similar schemes to what Baker ran anyways in the 4-2-5. And I know he runs a 3-3-5 as well. Can you kind of talk a little bit about what he does, Gabe?
Yeah, I mean, the truth is a lot of these guys do a lot of things. Like they'll have, every coach will say we're multiple, right? Yeah. Like he may run a 3-3-5 more often than a 4-3. He understands a 4-3 defense. If he comes in and he's got a team that's been recruited to play 4-3 and he's got the guys to run 4-3, he's going to run a 4-3. There are very few situations. I mean, Buddy Ryan invented a defense, right? So the 46 defense was kind of unique to him. But for the most part, these guys all know all these things, right? It's the same thing with like people, who's the defensive ends coach going to be? I don't know. I couldn't name a defensive ends coach, but I promise he doesn't know any drills Kevin Peoples didn't know, or vice versa. They're, right. They're largely here to recruit. So, and I don't want to say a coordinator doesn't matter. It does matter. But I just think that we tend to hyper-focus on these things a little bit more than necessary. If he can come in and get his guys all pulling in the same direction, they have a good vibe in the meeting room, and oh, by the way, he has some talent. Like Missouri got 4 dudes on that defense last year that are probably going to be drafted. I imagine that helped Blake Baker look a lot better. So I mean, ultimately that's mostly what it comes down to.
Yep. We'll see how that goes with everything in terms of scheme. I wanted to get to watch some South Alabama just to kind of have an idea, and obviously, but I just didn't have time before we did this podcast.
Well, you're ahead of me because I didn't want to watch it. There was no time in my life where I said, I'd like to watch some South Alabama film.
I'm sicko, so I mean, that like kind of tracks. But I was down in Dallas at the East-West Shrine Bowl. A couple of Missouri guys there at the East-West Shrine Bowl. If you're listening to this podcast here, we do have audio interviews with J.C. Carlisle and Harrison Mevis up on this audio channel right now. We got to sit down with those guys, talk to them about their journey, about their career at Mizzou, and kind of how they're attacking this NFL draft process. Long process here, as they are basically training for a track meet before the combine, and then they will train to play football again. But Missouri's got some good guys in the Shrine Bowl right now, getting in the Senior Bowl, getting a whole lot of buzz, whole lot of attention. So first we're going to take a break, then we'll get back and talking to just these all-star games, what's going on with all of those guys there. But we got to tell you about our friends at homefieldapparel.com. They got all kinds of good stuff for you to check out there. If you go there, you find a shirt that you like, and it's your first time on the website, first time checking out, you can go use code KCSN23 for 15% off your first order at homefieldapparel.com. It's not just for you either. If you are a good person and want to buy a gift for a friend who maybe goes or attends another university or is a fan of another university, you can do that there too, because they have 150 plus colleges designs. It's vintage made fresh. The kids love the vintage stuff. So be hip, be cool. Go to homefieldapparel.com. Use the code KCSN23 for 15% off at checkout. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back after this.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest-ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
Welcome back into Mizzou. That's who. It's draft season for all but two of NFL teams, one of those being the Kansas City Chiefs. Everybody is honing in on the draft, college all-star games. Now, this was the third year that we've gone to the East-West Shrine Bowl. I believe this was the first year that there was a Missouri player there, and there was two Missouri players there we got to sit down and talk to. But the one, Gabe, that I was most impressed by, and I don't know if people can really tell this by like the TV, but J.C. Carlisle is a big dude. Like he's a very big safety, and you can tell his size and his athleticism just like from the safety individual group when he's standing around. Like Kenny Logan was there specifically, and Kenny Logan, good safety for Kansas, he towers over him. He's so much longer, he's so much bigger. I think that could translate really well to the next level.
Barry Odom and his coaches told me when JC was a freshman, he would play on Sundays. Just the physical tools that they saw, they said he's an NFL player. Question, I'm not a huge like measurables guy, but I saw from your tweet, he weighed in at 231. Yeah. So I wonder, like, I don't know how much Willie Gay weighs, to be honest. But I wonder if in certain schemes, somebody will play JC at linebacker. Because I think the question at times has been the coverage skills here. Nobody's really questioned his ability to hit, and he comes up and plays run support really well. If he goes out and runs a 4.4, sub 4.5, at the combine or pro day or whatever, I could see certain teams saying, this guy can work at outside linebacker in what we do, and that getting him drafted.
How much did you say he weighed?
231.
231.
He's got to put
6'3", maybe, is that right?
6'3", I think at 5'8" or something like that. So almost 6'4", 5'1". His wing, like he had 34, and I don't have the tweet up in front of me. It was like 34 and some inch arms. Like he's got long arms. He's got an incredible wingspan. His hands are big. Like, I was looking through his measurements because we got the official measurements sent to us from the folks at East West Shrine Bowl, and I immediately, when I saw that, I said, that's a linebacker. They played him down in the box a whole lot, so they were moving him down kind of when they had odd fronts up there with wide receivers. He was playing in the box a whole lot. He did for Missouri, too, but he's playing in the box a lot down there in Dallas.
I just looked it up. Willie Gay is 6'1", 243. So you're talking about 12 pounds. Now look, if somebody thinks I know he's played safety his whole life. If somebody thinks he's athletic enough to be a safety, that's great. But I can easily see him as either, kind of a nickel or a linebacker or type, that kind of hybrid player in the NFL.
It's impressive.
What about Mevis though? Like, kickers don't get drafted very often.
No, they don't. He had a rough first day of practice when we were there. I think I say rough, and he missed like a 58-yarder, right? So like he hit everything within 50, and like I think the two that he missed were both from like 55 plus. The second day he hit two 58-yarders. So I think that was probably, obviously a lot better. But man, what I was impressed with, this is the first time I talked to Harrison Mevis. He's very confident. Like, he's a very confident. I don't know. Yeah, he's very like I hit big kicks. He had a quote where he said, "I hit big kicks and I'm here to show it." And I said, "Okay, all right, I love that." Like he's
when he was
a kicker.
When he was struggling last year, we would kind of ask him, is it How do you fight there? He said, no, I'll make the next one. You know, and he's low-key hilarious because he doesn't talk all that much, but it's like, I don't know, it's arrogant. Like, he is arrogant, and that's fine. I don't say that as a negative thing, but like, he clearly, the way he says things, he's like, well, I'm not going to spend a bunch of time talking about this here. I've got like 7 words. I'm really good at this. So let's just move on to the next thing. Yeah. And he has excellent celebrations.
The crazy thing is his brother's a really good kicker too. Who kicked at Iowa State last year, or not obviously last year, but the year before, and never got picked up by anybody. And
like in the NFL, and he accidentally hit a coach with a field goal or something like that. Like it went so offline and hit a coach, and he got cut like 2 days later. Yeah. I'm not making this up. This was an actual story that happened.
If you go and listen to the interview, Harrison actually told us his brother just signed with the Battlehawks. I don't know if that's official yet, but like his brother just signed with the Battlehawks.
I follow his brother on Instagram, and he's kicking like far, far, and obviously he doesn't have pads on or anything. And but I mean, he's kicking the crap out of the ball, and I'm like, how has this dude not been given a chance to do anything? And I mean, it's hard. I mean, it's hard to be a kicker, and I wish Harrison would have stayed, one more year. Obviously, that's just me being selfish too, because that kickers don't get drafted. But I don't know. You also
Bill Belichick's not there anymore. Never mind.
But you also want Harrison to, he had the chance to become the all-time leading scorer, I think, in NCAA history. And I think that the Alabama kicker just became that. So I think he had the opportunity to break that record. And you're like, oh, you could have gotten the record books.
Not everybody wants to be Tommy Boy and spend 8 years in college. Like, at some point, like, I don't know about you guys, but 4 years, I couldn't have done another one. And I wasn't playing. I was just like, I don't want to go to any more classes and do this. Like, I want somebody to actually write me a check and make some money.
It's tired of homework.
Exactly.
Homework.
Like, I don't want to have to pretend I care about all this stuff.
How much school are they even really going to, though? Because I had some classes with some big names whenever I was in school. They weren't going very much, and they weren't even making NIL money. So,
but like, they have to go to some, and they have to turn in enough assignments to stay eligible.
They have to take tests.
They're going to more than none. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true.
So I had tweeted out a video. This is a couple days ago from practice where Harrison Mevis did hit a 58-yarder, hits the back of the net above the crossbar. Like, it probably would have been good from like 65. My mentions were flooded with Detroit Lions fans. Detroit Lions fans are desperate for a kicker.
Why? They're never going to use him.
I think it might have came out that
those two things might be related.
Yeah, that kicker might have actually sucked. That's why they didn't use him. But Detroit needs to get thicker. There's one tweet. Get ready to learn Detroit, buddy. The future Detroit Lion. Welcome to Detroit. Like, I'm getting flooded with people who are Detroit Lions fans saying, let's get this guy. People saying even use a first-round pick on him with Dan Campbell's draft history. I mean, hey, look, he's not known to take the most valuable positions.
It will be amazing if Harrison Mevis is the first Missouri player off the board in this draft.
Hey, Buffalo needs a kicker, right?
Yeah. Look, people need kick. I am confident he will find a job. I'm sure he will be kicking on Sundays. I'm sure he'll be kicking in the preseason. That is a tough job, though. If you miss one,
right? The problem with kickers is there's only 32 jobs.
Yes.
There's no such thing as backup kickers.
Right.
Nobody has a practice squad kicker. It's just, I don't know if a couple of years ago when Butker got hurt, the Chiefs were just going and signing dudes like, yeah, you used to kick in the NFL. We'll give you a shot. They don't keep, if there's not a backup around.
The punter just kicks. If someone gets hurt,
right.
A punter just kicks.
Or
Eric Reed or Justin Reed kicks. Yeah.
You have a guy who used to kick a little bit in high school who now plays safety for your team. That is what you got. But
it really is amazing how little importance is put on like such a huge position, because like outside of quarterback, I could argue that it might have the most direct impact on winning and losing. Like, somebody asked me in my mailbag this week, where are the glaring holes? And I said, I don't think they have any glaring holes next year, but one of the biggest questions for me is, can they replace Harrison Mevis? Because like, I can just directly point to multiple games over the last 2 years that were decided on whether Harrison Beavis made a kick or not.
Oh, and sometimes he did, and sometimes he didn't.
Right. Didn't always work. But I mean, how many other positions, how many other guys are you consistently pointing to? Because they're only on the field for 5 plays a game maybe. But man, they're all like no other position or points being determined every single time you're on the field.
Right. Good point. That's why when you look at the all-time scorers in NFL history, there's like Tom Brady and kickers.
And Jerry Rice. Right.
Right.
That's
it. That's like all. But let's flip over to the Senior Bowl because there's been a lot of buzz. Practices just started on Tuesday for the Senior Bowl. They had official weigh-ins. I was really impressed with how Darius Robinson weighed in. He weighed in at 6'5", 286, 10 4/8 inch hands. That's a huge hand, by the way. And if you're not familiar with kind of how those goes, 34 6/8 inch arms as well. You can simplify that fraction, but I'm not.
Is that length or
that's just a single
circumference? I thought maybe it was just biceps.
That's true because he's got some huge guns on him, and he showed out on the Senior Bowl practice the first day. He looked really good. What I think about Darius is he can play on the outside and the inside. We saw him do that for Missouri a whole lot, but at 286, he holds 286 really well, and he looks good at 286. I'm going to be interested to see at the combine what he weighs in at. I don't know if he's going to move either way or if he wants to get a little bit lighter. It's a little heavy for, like, if we're talking about the Spags prototype edge that he usually likes, it's a bit on the heavy side for it. And if he wants to play edge at the next level, I think he'll be fine.
I mean, I don't know how much weight Darius can cut. You look at that dude.
Yeah, that's fair.
He is not, like, there's no fat to get rid of.
He's lean.
And he can go, like you said, he can play kind of either way. And I don't know if you guys saw Jim Nagy, who's the director of the Senior Bowl, tweeted out, I think yesterday, one of Darius Robinson's coaches here gave me a comp that if I put it out, it would change a lot of people's first round mock drafts. So I don't know who that is. Some people on our board were speculating maybe it's Chris Jones, like another guy that you look at and you go, there's no way he's 300 pounds, right? And I don't know. That's high praise, right? For a guy that I don't know if that's the comp or not, but I'd be interested if later on in the process, Jim Nagy ever will say who that was, that he was told. But Darius and Chris Abrams-Drain were the two guys from Missouri that I saw that a lot of people had really high praise for the first day or two.
Go ahead.
There was a really good clip of Javon Foster too. Going one-on-one. And I mean, he was a freaking brick wall in that clip. And yeah, I think someone's going to get a steal and maybe a day 2, day 3 type guy. But man,
I'd be surprised if Foster's there on day 3. I think Robinson, Foster, and Rakestraw are definitely gone in the first 3 rounds, maybe in the first 2. Because Ennis is all of a sudden, and he's not there this week. Injury kept him out. Same with Tyron Hopper, but Ennis is popping up on first round mock drafts more. Matt Miller had him early. Like he was on him early, but now Dane Brugler, I think, has him 26. Kuiper has him up in the first round. Like you're starting to really see his name pop up a lot of places.
I talked to actually Matt Miller just this last week when we were talking about the Missouri corners and with Abrams-Drain going there. I was like, hey, like I know Rakestraw's from getting a lot of buzz, but I really like Abram. Like I like KD a lot. Like I just love how he plays the game. And look, he was a very productive corner. Like Gabe, you and I talked about it a lot. Like why do they keep throwing at him? Well, they had to keep throwing at him because Dennis Rakestraw was on the other side of the field.
Well, it's the classic debate of potential versus production.
Absolutely.
Right? Because most Missouri fans that watched games would say KAD is the first round draft pick.
Yeah.
Well, he's also 173 pounds. He's 5'11". You might question how he holds up against the run and against some of these physical guys. Whereas Ennis, you look at him and yes, that's an NFL corner. The way he is built is an NFL cornerback. He doesn't have the production that Chris had in college. So, I think it kind of depends on the organization and who's making the pick. And look, I don't care what you could tell me. Chris Abrams-Drain weighed 126 pounds. I watched him play for 4 years. He can play. We mentioned the Chiefs a little bit. Like, why are they good? Because they have guys that just the defensive coordinator can say, just go follow that guy. Like, just follow, just cover the ever-loving hell out of it. And that's what Missouri had last year. They had a couple guys that they could mostly say, yeah, just stick with your guy. And that Chris was really good at that. Like, he didn't get beat very much at all, right? I mean, even when guys were making catches, he was right in the picture. And so I'll be interested to see, because most people I don't think have him as a top 2 or 3 round guy, and it'll be interesting to see where he goes.
I was just trying to figure it out. Yeah, nailed it. Actually, Ennis was on the sideline because he's training down in Dallas.
But he's not like actually practicing anywhere.
Was not practicing. He's training down in Dallas. He was there to see JC, and I talked to Ennis actually for a little bit. Said he's feeling good. Said he's just working on. I believe Matt Miller even reported he had that. It was a core muscle surgery in December. So something that might be pretty similar to maybe what Jerick McKinnon had. I know Jerick McKinnon had a core muscle surgery. And look, Matt Miller, very high on Ennis Racial, has him at 19, I believe, on his big board. Like, he has him like 19th overall. He's been very impressive. Coaches, from what I hear, have also been very impressed with him just when they go and look at the film. But again, Javon Foster, he weighed in, and you're like, yeah, that's an NFL tackle. Like, they've got some guys now that I can remember, some offensive linemen or some, Isaiah McGuire, I think of too, is like a little bit of a tweener body, right? Like, there's some guys that have like tweener bodies of like positions, but now you're seeing these guys like Darius Robinson, Javon Foster, J.C. Carlisle, guys who have these bodies. You're like, yeah, that fits the NFL mold. These are the NFL bodies that they're looking for, and they're going out and improving it. And I think another guy who is going out improving, who was a big winner from day 1 of practice. Now, as we record this, day 2 of practice is still going on right now. Cody Schrader. Cody Schrader really impressed at the first day of Senior Bowl practice. They were really just seems like the story of Cody Schrader. Right? He's impressed literally everywhere he's gone. Yeah. But weighed in at 5'8" and 2/8, 207 with a 28-inch arm. Now, that doesn't necessarily matter for running backs all that much, but a little bit smaller than maybe I would have anticipated. But he plays a lot bigger than that.
Can I give you my NFL draft 100% guarantee? If Cody Schrader is not drafted, he is a Kansas City Chief within like 6 hours of the draft. And you will see him in St. Joe. I mean, local guy, a Missouri guy, you won't convince me that Andy Reid doesn't try to get a Missouri guy or two in there every year. Like, if he does not get drafted, and he might get, I don't know if he'll get drafted or not, but if he doesn't, I would be stunned if he doesn't get a shot in Chiefs camp.
It'd be awesome.
They do have that local pro day that the Chiefs always do. They put on a local pro day just before the draft. I think maybe a month or so before the draft that they will do. And you always do see a couple of those guys, if they do go undrafted, they will end up in a Chiefs uniform for training camp because they do need camp bodies to get this all filled out. But as we get closer to the draft, man, it's been an exciting time for Missouri and the prospects that they have. I think they've got a chance to have a lot of guys drafted and guys have some very impactful NFL careers as well.
Can I drop breaking news here on the podcast? It's not breaking news, but I did just get a text message from somebody down at the Senior Bowl that said, I was just talking to a coach who thinks Darius Robinson could be a first rounder.
Wow. Oh.
So, I mean, and like I always go back to Gary Pinkel said that Don James always told him, when you start getting guys drafted, that's when your program takes off, right? And if they get 2 guys picked in the first round, I mean, it's because we 100% know they're going to have one next year, right? Yeah. I mean, there's zero question.
Yeah.
They have a top half of the first round pick next year in all likelihood. So if you're talking about 3, maybe 4 first round picks in 2 years, I mean, then that's the type of stuff that gets you noticed by kids. And it is why it's somewhat important when they do Monday Night Football. Hey, University of Missouri, whatever. The more it pops up, the more it's on kids' minds and the more of an impact it makes. But, I think that I'm not sure there's a kid that Missouri fans will root for more than Darius Robinson. I mean, when he came here, what he turned into, what this program turned into, and just, I did, Gerard and I did an interview with him about a month ago, and just, phenomenal kid, and the type of guy that, like, I am usually not big on the please Kansas City draft every Missouri guy. Like, I don't want them taking Ennis Rakestraw in the first round. They're good at cornerback. But yeah, I would be perfectly happy if Darius Robinson was on my team.
Yeah.
I do wish Nick Bolton said Mizzou, but I understand with players.
Sometimes.
Does he?
I've seen him say it. Yeah, I've seen him say it a few times.
I understand players saying their high school or where they came from, because I get that. I really do understand when they say that, because like that is it's showing players like from their neighborhoods that they can, get out of where they came from. Like, I get that, but man, sometimes you just wish that they said University of Missouri or something like that, because it's just such a gut punch when they don't say it.
Yeah.
But
we'll agree to disagree on that one.
Well,
it's helpful, but they can say whatever they want.
Oh no, they can say what they want. I agree. Like I said, I get why they don't say it, but you just wish sometimes that they did. Like in the Super Bowl, like I wish he would say Mizzou, but
he said it at the Super Bowl parade.
He did.
He did. He said MIZ, and that was awesome. So
yeah, it was pretty cool. I was there.
Beggars can't be choosers, I guess.
So hey, good show, football season.
Yeah, it's definitely football season.
Well, nothing else
is going on. Nothing else.
Well, I would like to mention that a winless team in the SEC is a 5.5 point favorite in the basketball game tonight. That's how well things are going at Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Yeah. At the end of the day, we're not a dumpster fire of a team.
Well,
borderline
dumpster fire. They're actually below our.
Okay. I meant in the locker room, not that type of a dumpster fire, because they've got a lot of stuff going on that's not just on the court.
Most of which, let's say, is almost certainly untrue. Like, I get it, but let's just get that on the record that this is, in all likelihood, just the internet being the internet. Yeah. In fact, I've had a few people tell me, I've actually had a few people tell me it was actually started by Missouri fans on the internet.
Oh, so it absolutely was started by Missouri fans on the internet, but they've still got players walking away from.
Oh yeah, they got it
from the team, and I know I have a friend that runs the PR department of a company that just did a photo shoot with Devo Davis literally last weekend, and then the next day he stepped away from the program, and it's just a nightmare. So I don't even know what's going on, and it's crazy town. So
it'll be interesting. I assume Trevon Brazil will get a warm welcome back to Mizzou Arena tonight. I know. I'm sure the Antlers will be on their best behavior, and I won't be tweeting out anything super embarrassing and humiliating that they might say tonight. So.
Yeah. I'm not touching that one.
Yeah.
You tried to trick me. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to touch that one.
Tucker's not taking any bait today.
I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. So better end the podcast before I do say something. So that's going to do it. For this week's edition of Mizzou That's Who. Look, we'll be following these guys' draft prospects and draft kind of stock kind of as we go. I'll be at the Combine as well, so I'm going to do my best to try to get some to talk with some of these guys at the Combine as the draft process moves on. So it's an exciting year for Missouri football and just the prospects they have. I think this might be the most exciting year that I can remember in some time for Missouri and their draft prospects in the NFL and how many guys they could be possibly put in the league. So. We'll be back next week with another episode. So until then, that's Gabe DeArmond and Maggie Johnson. I'm Tucker Franklin. That's going to do it for this week's edition of Mizzou That's Who here on KC Sports Network. We'll talk to you next week.